Good morning, everybody. My name is Pornchai Monghonvanit. I'm president of Siam University in Bangkok, Thailand. I would like to welcome all of you to the third plenary session, Local and Global Community Engagement. We would be talking about the roles and responsibility of students and alumni in higher education in local communities. How do we empower and prepare the student for continuing community and global engagement post-graduation? What kind of skill do the students need to navigate a post-pandemic job market? And how effective has the virtual community involvement proven to be during the COVID-19? What lessons have we learned and what needs to be changed? And I'm very much delighted to introduce to you our speaker for today, which has a lot of activities that are quite impressive. Our speaker today is Kenisha Arora, the youth representative to the SDG 4 High-Level Steering Committee for UNESCO, Canada. Kenisha Arora is a medical science student and a passionate youth leader. She has worked locally, nationally, and internationally to transform education. Recently, Kenisha spoke at the UN General Assembly alongside UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the President of the UN General Assembly to call upon the world leaders to invest in quality education. She served as the youngest member of the UN's SDG number 4 High-Level Steering Committee, through which Kenisha is responsible for the global governance of education and monitors the benchmark indicators of each country alongside with UNESCO, UNICEF, the World Bank, and the head of states. Kenisha's impact and leadership towards transforming education has been recognized by many media outlets, including Forbes magazine. At her university, Kenisha served as a senator and board of governors, where she oversees a budget of some 829 million to drive investment, re-energizing research, fostering a sense of community, and promoting teaching and learning for the future and social impact. She worked tirelessly to amplify the voice of 40,000 students as the chair of the Student Senator. Kenisha even fought to end period poverty by passing motion to provide free menstrual hygiene product in all school washrooms. During the COVID-19, Kenisha found a non-profit organization with her sister to restore humanity and spread hope to the most vulnerable member of the society. What started off as two sisters writing cards for senior long-term care home has transitioned into the movement of hope with over 5,000 hope spreaders. The Hope Sister recently also launched an initiative to send hope bags filling with toys, educational kits, essential terms, and treats to Ukrainian students. Kenisha's humanitarian efforts have led her to become top 10 finalists for the 100,000 Global Student Prize out of tens of thousands of nominations from over 150 countries, and even received the Prince Dana Award. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Kenisha Arora to talking about this important topic. Kenisha, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pornchai, for that extremely warm welcome. It is an honor for me to be here, and I'm very grateful for York University for hosting Sustainable on the Go, this virtual conference that brings all of us together to reimagine the future of education as we build towards a sustainable future. This year's theme in particular around navigating the new normal in higher education is one that is very close to my heart. My parents came from India into the country of Canada to provide me and my sister with quality education that they fought so hard to achieve. And this reality of accessing higher education in particular is often a dream for many young people across the world. And so I'm really thankful for York University for fulfilling some of these dreams and coming to bringing us all together to really think about education in Canada and globally as we reflect on where we are now and how much further we have to go. It's no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic shut down doors to so many schools across the globe. But not only that, even in classrooms where people and young people were learning, so-called learning, there was delivery of curriculum, we were not learning the right things, or we were not equipped with the right tools to prepare us for the realities of the future. And so today, when we think about what does it mean to transform education, let's remind ourselves that transforming education is much different than just changing the current policies and practices that we have. It requires a lot of us to come philosophically to challenge the norms that we have fought so hard to establish. And on World Philosophy Day today, it also reminds us that we do have the ability to reflect critically. We do have the ability to challenge systems, and that's what we're here to do today. As we reimagine what does it mean to live in a sustainable society, what does it mean to achieve the 2030 agenda that has been set by the United Nations, education is the heart of achieving all of these sustainable development goals. Because it is only education that can transform our societies. So investing in one child and in one person's education, we are actually investing in society at large. We were rejoined at the Early Childhood and Care and Conference in Uzbekistan last week, where we talked about how investing $1 in preschool education actually gives a return of investment for a society of up to 17 USD. That's $1 can become up to $17. That's even better than any stock deal that I've ever heard of. So it really shows that education not only benefits societies and us as a whole, but long-term effects of building a sustainable world is coming through education itself. And at the United Nations, in the UN General Assembly, we all were joined for the Transforming Education Summit to really come together and say, what are the priorities of the future of education? What are the musts, and how do we make this way forward? And the biggest priorities was really international mobility for inclusive, innovative, and responsive education curriculum and pedagogies to respond to the ever so changing globe and challenges that we have after the pandemic. And so the biggest themes that came out were greening for education. We talk about, achieving or dismantling climate effects that we have in our society. How do we do that? We do that through education. It is only through climate literacy that we can achieve climate action. And so we talk about digital transformations. What are the next upcoming digital transformations taking place in our society? How do we ride the wave to ensure that AI is not going to take over our world, but support the development of our world? That happens through interdisciplinary learning. And that's exactly why higher education is so important, is because it establishes a ground for scholars to come together to really reimagine and be critical about the future of our planet and the future of our society, whether it means greening education, digital education, and gender equality. And as we've seen, inclusivity is at the heart of education as well. Education has the ability in our society to create gaps, yes, but it also has the ability to dismantle these gaps. And so I urge us all to ride on the positive wave of education, because although there is prestige around higher education, I hope to one day live in a world where there is no prestige. And in fact, higher education is no longer a privilege, but something that is accessible no matter where you are and no matter who you are or where you live. And so I'm really excited for today's conversation as we discuss how can we reorient education towards sustainability, whether that means sustainability of our planet, of our economies, or our world at large. So Thank you very much again for having me here today. I urge you to ask questions in the chat box so we can really figure out how do we navigate ahead from where we are now. Thank you, Mr. Pornchai.
One moment. I also like to ask you about the question that what are the roles and responsibility of the student and alumni, and more important is that how you can empower them to do this.
Thank you so much for asking that. Youth are really the cornerstone of transforming education. We see young people, they're educators, they're students, they're learners, they're home care makers. And one thing that I'd like to stress is that education doesn't only happen in the corners of four walls, right? We're learning lifelong learning when we talk about lifelong learning, or even early care education. Education happens in our homes, it happens in the workplaces, it happens outside of institutions and buildings. And so when we think about where are youth and young people in each of these education foundation systems, we see them as teachers, we see them as professors, we see them as the students, we see them as people on ground teaching other young people, whether it's through tutoring or grassroots initiatives, who are breaking the challenges and barriers of accessing education. I had the privilege of meeting some African students at the Transforming Education Summit who told me that their teachers are actually their young mothers, their mamas in Africa, who are making their own income through entrepreneurship. And so they learn entrepreneurship skills from their own mamas. And so the role that young people play is critical, not only in advocating for more investment in education, challenging the pedagogies that we have, but even reinforcing the capacity at the grassroots level. They even play a role in, like my sister and I have done, creating more educational opportunities for those who don't have access to education. And so at the Transforming Education Summit during the Youth Forum, we saw all the young people in the world come together, whether it was through spirit, virtually, or in person, to really reinforce that young people can do something to transform education. And that's when we launched the Youth Declaration, which actually outlines the commitments of us young people. But I also know that York University has a youth engagement program as well on engaging young people to transform education locally, nationally, and internationally. So advocacy is not the only way, and young people are right now transforming education.
Okay, so thank you very much, wonderful. And I also like to ask you that the education nowadays is divided into disciplinary, and then do you think that disciplinary education has some kind of problem, or we should transform it so that we can work and we also can teach and learn across the disciplinary? What do you think about this?
That's a great question. So I truly believe that we need experts in the future, right? We need people that we can count on, epidemiologists if we have a pandemic. We need economists to help us understand how do we move forward in our economy, restore it after a recession. But I also believe that learning is not about subjects. We don't go to school to learn mathematics or science. There are some people who might never use their biologies that they learned in their high school education. But what does really, going to biology class, for example, teach us? It teaches us a way of thinking. It teaches us a way of seeing the world. And I believe that interdisciplinary learning is the way to go in the future. If someone is doing a degree in, let's say, medical sciences, they should also be able to understand the political implications of what they are learning, because public health is just as important as being an expert in an area of medicine. Our world runs on these intersections, and so it's only fair that we teach the scientists how to communicate. We teach the artists how to sell their work through entrepreneurship. Yeah. The NFTs being a big area right now, the intersection of art and technology. So we need to teach artists how to get their work on these technological platforms. We need to teach technologists and digital transformers in the world to be more ethical in the way that they operate. And that's exactly what I hope the future of higher education can, come and integrate all together.
Okay, wonderful. And I also like to ask you the last question. I think that this is about the after the pandemic situation. Mm-hmm. And I think that we also have learned a lot during the pandemic, and also a lot of industry also has been disrupted and transformed. What kind of skill that do you think that the student need to navigate the post-pandemic job market?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. There was a study that actually showed that around 70% of young people don't have the skills they need for the future of the job market. So when we think about what skills do people need for the future of jobs, we don't even know what jobs will look like in the future.
Yeah, right.
I mean, jobs are ever so changing, but the one thing that I will say is learning how to learn. That's the biggest skill, right? Because right now we see a lot of, you see in surgeries, for example, I'm in the field of medicine, so that's what I can relate to. In the field of surgeries, for example, we're seeing AI technology. So when it's taking over diagnostics, is the role of a doctor going to change? Of course it's going to change. But it doesn't mean that we need to teach these doctors how to diagnose. We need to teach them how to adapt and learn. And so the role of education is not teaching curriculum. And we've seen that during COVID. It's not enough to just say, here's how you add, here is how you find a standard curve. It's going beyond that. It's learning how to learn and taking what you learn, applying it with empathy and human skills.
Okay, thank you very much. Since the time is running out, I think that what you have mentioned is also one of the very important pillar of learning of UNESCO. And I think that what you have presented will be a very good food of thought that the next session will discuss about. Thank you very much, Kenisha Arora, for your presence and also for your food of thought.
Thank you, Dr. Pornchai.
You're welcome.